Those things always look very crispy, very flavorful for sure. So definitely your wheelhouse for sure.
You're a good man.
Rest time certainly important. Anytime you're going to smoke anything, give it proper time to sit there. Don't pull it right off the grill and serve it. No, you got to have the proper rest time.
Low and slow.
Meanwhile, and I can't come up with some sort of clever transition to what Steph Curry has said.
Speaking of low and slow.
Meats. Yeah. He's a little slower now maybe than he was when the Warriors dynasty began. But he had an interesting thing to say. In an ESPN interview he did with the talented Malika Andrews, here's what Stephen Curry had to say about the Warriors and their dynasty now that it's over since Klay Thompson's moved on.
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, defining a dynasty can take a lot of different looks, but people thought this was over in 2019 when Klay tried to get back on defense with a messed up knee, and we lost that series, and then had a rough year that next year. Like 22 was an amazing championship because we defied the odds and kept things together, and we were trying to maintain that for these last two. So you think that's 11 years or almost 12 years of championship relevancy built around a certain core, knowing what KD was, for those 4 years as well. So a long-winded way of saying I don't think so.
The NBA, Hembo, has seen 6 champions in each of the last 6 years, 6 different champions. The Warriors, the last team really, I think, to be considered a dynasty in the NBA. They won 3 out of 4 championships. They were in the finals a bunch, lost a couple of more times, once to LeBron and the Cavs, another one to the Raptors with some of those injuries that he was just referencing. And then they had another championship they added as their 4th on the back end of that. Are the Warriors indeed, as Steph Curry seems to think, the last great NBA dynasty?
Most definitely not. They most definitely are the last one of this iteration, you might say, because 6 different teams in 6 different years now, as you mentioned, winning the title, I think is ushering in sort of a new era of basketball, and the new collective bargaining agreement, as we've discussed and as many have discussed, make it very punitive to try and aggregate stars and give them max contracts, and we're seeing that. The teams that have the young, cost-controlled, sustainable assets, those are going to be the ones that I think win the day over the next several years. But we're definitely going to have another dynasty in the NBA, and we're probably going to have one soon. That's just how the sport works. There's only 5 players on the floor, and one can make a huge difference. The formula is very clear. If you can just aggregate the stars and build your program around them, you can have a decent shot at, sort of bite at the apple, you might say, over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row. What made the Warriors special is the fact that, as Steph said, it was a dozen years, and they got that ring in 2022, which is probably the one they're going to cherish the most, because that's not the one they were supposed to win. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if somebody is going to replicate that in terms of the sustained success that they had. And they had some injuries, right, in there, and it's kind of hard to kind of piece it all together because it wasn't sustained success every year through. They had years where they had the number 1 overall draft pick because of injuries that they ended up suffering, and Steph obviously had one of those injuries as well. But are they the last great NBA dynasty? The answer is no. Like, every dynasty thinks that they're going to be the last one in their sport, right? I do a show locally in Milwaukee with a former Packer, Mark Chimera, and he had a solid NFL career, 9 years, 3 Pro Bowls, won a Super Bowl ring. And one of the things that he tells me is, like, every NFL player thinks that somehow the league is going to stop when they retire. He said when he retired, he's like, what do you mean they're still playing games? How are they going on without me? It's just part of the mentality you need to be a high-level athlete. Well, of course, nobody's ever going to do what we did. No, we were the greatest. It's just part of what goes with the territory with the NBA. And right now, while the NBA has more parity than basically any other sports because of the 6 different champions in as many years, somebody's smart enough that even with the new restrictions placed on, with everybody's favorite word, the aprons in the NBA, somebody is going to figure it out, and there will be another dynasty. There will be somebody who wins 3 out of 4 or wins back-to-back and does all these different things, because dynasties are a part of every sport. It's not like they're just going to go away. Somebody's going to figure it out, and somebody's going to have a sustained level of success.
And the NBA is defined by them. I hate to break it to you, Steph, but if the Celtics win the championship next year, we're going to talk all summer about whether or not they're going to become a dynasty. That's just how it works. That's how it works in the NBA.
Or if the Nuggets win one, now all of a sudden they have 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Oh, can they go back to back? And then they've got 3 and 4. It's yeah, it's going to be a part of the discussion. They're never going away in any sport.
That's just how this stuff works. I think you've identified it correctly. Athletes feel like when their time ends, the time ends. It's obviously just not the case. As a fan, as a person who covers this stuff, that's the fun of it. You figure out who's going to receive the baton, and there's always going to be that kind of handoff. Now, right now, that handoff has not been clean, but would it stun me if Minnesota with Anthony Edwards wound up doing something dynastic? It would not. Would it stun me if Oklahoma City with SGA wound up doing something dynastic? It would not. Would it stun me if Boston won the championship next year and we begun talking about them in that manner? It would not. I mean, truly, the only sport for which dynasties have been exceedingly difficult to come by is baseball. We've not had a repeat champion in baseball since the Yankees repeat from 98 to 2000, but we've seen the Patriots and the Chiefs have, you might say, relative dynasties over the last 20 to 25 years in pro football, and the NBA is littered with them. You could talk yourself into 3 or 4 different dynasties since the Lakers repeat 25 years ago. You really could.
Yeah. Which sport do you think it is? So baseball is clearly the hardest.
It's gotta
be. That's just because I think there's a couple things going into it. A, no salary cap, so teams can just go out and spend as much as they want. But also, baseball's kind of a random sport. And the postseason is so different to me than every sport. The postseason's a little bit different than what your regular season is, but the postseason in baseball is so different because you're just planning to play, okay, over the course of 162, the breaks are going to even out. You know where the breaks don't even out? In a 3 or 5 game series. They're not evening out over the course of those first 2 rounds of baseball playoffs, so it's just so hard to have that sustained level, and especially at the rate where it seems like pitchers are getting hurt all the time now. It's just so hard to run back a similar team than you had the year before.
It's so challenging in pro basketball for a significantly lesser team to stack best-of-7 series wins, which is what made Miami's run last year so incredibly historic and so incredibly unlikely. Baseball is a high-variance sport. Basketball is the very opposite. I hate to break it to you, Steph, but there are going to be dynasties in basketball until the end of time because of math, because of the way that it works, because one human being can make all the difference in the world, and all it takes is that one human being having the right sort of collection of people around them. To that point, do you think that team is Minnesota? Is OKC? Is Boston? Because I think in any other sport, talking dynasty is usually pretty irresponsible. But in pro basketball, talking dynasty has been reality, and it has been basically since the 60s when the Celtics had theirs. So what do you think? What's the best answer to that question?
I lean right now, because I don't think there's an obvious one, because I think everybody's still figuring out the new rules that they have to play under. So I lean towards, even though they don't have one, Oklahoma City. They have the best young roster. They have literally the most assets in terms of draft picks I've ever seen of anybody. They seem to be making right decisions with those draft picks, with their roster, and the pieces that they've added. Because the roster is so young and they're going to have so much control over that roster, because that's the one thing that doesn't change, is you still have that control over the assets that you have in the NBA. I kind of lean towards OKC in terms of what I think is going to be that next dynasty in the NBA.
I tend to agree with you on that for the exact reasons that you stated. The fun part about this is you don't always see it coming. The Warriors were 51-31 and knocked out in the first round of the playoffs in Mark Jackson's last season. And I was working at ESPN at the time. That was, I think, my second year at the company. And the Warriors that first year seemed like something of a novelty. It definitely didn't seem like the kind of thing that over the next dozen seasons was going to yield one of the most cherished dynasties in the history of the sport. So it's not always obvious where this is going to come from. But if you're going to ask me to pick or identify a team, it would be OKC. But if you were to ask me to identify a player that you could build a dynasty around, I think it would be Anthony Edwards, who got that team to the conference finals, I would say at least 1 year ahead of schedule. It's not obvious to me how they're going to be able to build that thing because they're already sort of in a tough spot financially and the ownership struggles super weird from afar. But he's the guy, he's the player that I could see being a Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant level superstar that, players might flock to. And he might even see some of his Olympic teammates try to start flocking to him. If he really acquits himself well this summer and shows out in a way that you might expect for a player who's really on the ascent, he might be like the star that the disgruntled star wants to play with. And that's a sort of under-discussed attribute of the Olympic team, which is obviously what yielded the Big Three in Miami and sort of changed the course of basketball forever.
Well, Anthony Edwards, to me, that in terms of how I see it getting better, him just learning from what happened in the conference finals.
Yeah.
Because he is still so young, and as you mentioned, maybe they were a little ahead of schedule, maybe they weren't, who knows. But while the series overall was not competitive, a lot of those games early were. And they just did not deliver. Like, he had bad turnovers. Minnesota just couldn't figure it out. They crumbled under the pressure of the last 3 minutes of a conference finals game. And it's having that experience, learning from it, figuring out how you get yourself out of that. That's how Minnesota gets better, is Anthony Edwards continuing to get better. Because the scary part is, as good as Anthony Edwards was last year, I think he's only scratching the surface. I think there's a lot more growth that still happens within his career.
So it might feel or seem a little premature to even pose this question to you, but should we be talking about San Antonio like this? Should we be talking about Victor Wembanyama like this? I'm not sure I've ever seen someone with his collection of skills, certainly not at that size. I mean, if you told me he winds up being some combination of Dirk and Hakeem Olajuwon based on the canvas on which you can paint, I wouldn't tell you that you're crazy. Now, they're probably still a year or two away from even being remotely competitive, so it, I suppose, might feel premature. But like I said, sometimes these things happen unexpectedly and unexpectedly fast. Would it stun you if 10 years from now, for example, we're talking about Victor Wembanyama the same way we did Tim Duncan?
No, it wouldn't shock me. But at the same time, the architect of all those Spurs teams that we just go, oh, the Spurs are going to do the right thing because they're a smart organization, like, Pop's not going to be there in 10 years. That's going to be a looming decision that is going to be large. Who succeeds Greg Popovich and continues the growth and everything else of putting the right pieces around Wemby continuing to grow. Once Popovich decides he's done, that is a huge decision, and that's where I would be hesitant in going, oh yeah, San Antonio's just going to figure this out. Because, like we did with Tim Duncan, because, well, we saw what Popovich could do with Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and how that just continued for the next 15, 16 years.
Yeah, that's the team. That's the sort of, in a few years, long shot team that you might see in the conference finals 6 times in an 8-year span and having a bite at the apple practically every year, because a healthy Victor Wembanyama, I think, is going to be the best player in the league for a while.
This is Greeny Hempel coming to you live from the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. Coming up, speaking of Anthony Edwards, he apparently is agreeing with what Hembo said about him in terms of being the next great one. We discuss next on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
It's Serena Williams, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this year's ESPYs. But before the show starts, I hope you'll join ESPN radio stations for their annual ESPYs Day in support of the V Foundation's work to achieve victory over cancer. Tune in all day on July 11th on ESPN Radio and give to the V Foundation.
Summer's just getting started, so fill your cooler with the smooth and refreshing taste of Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. It tastes like real iced tea because it's made with real brewed tea. And with a 5% kick of alcohol, Twisted Tea is perfect for the beach, the lake, or wherever you're hanging out and day drinking with your friends. Look for the bright yellow cans. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Keep it twisted.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
Lowe's knows owning a project means owning the right tools. And during Craftsman Days, you can save big on what you need from a brand you trust. Get a free Select V20 tool when you buy a Select Battery 2-pack. Plus, get your choice of the V20 string trimmer or leaf blower for only $99. Find these savings and more today. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 7/10 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Traveling with your furry friends can be rough. Just getting them to come along is difficult enough, so the last thing you want to worry about is finding a place to stay. But when you choose Baymont by Wyndham, your four-legged companions are invited because they know pets are family too. At Baymont by Wyndham, pets are not just welcome, they're VIPs. Baymont by Wyndham. Come on in. So glad you're here. Book now at wyndhamhotels.com/Baymont.
Is it just me? Or does it sound like the universe is sending a message? Maybe it's time to really listen.
Tommy John.
To Tommy John.
Tommy John.
Tommy John underwear has dozens of comfort innovations like outrageously soft, lightweight fabrics that can keep you 2 to 3 times cooler than regular cotton.
Tommy John, Tommy John.
With thousands of 5-star reviews and over 20 million pairs sold, people love Tommy John. One Tommy John fanatic raves, love the summer weight and breathable fabrics, just the right support. And everything's backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. Shop Tommy John's huge 4th of July sale now for 30% off site-wide. Save 30% at TommyJohn.com/stream. TommyJohn.com/stream. See site for details.
Hi, I'm Jason Alexander. Or as you probably know me, Royal Flusher 25 from WSOP. And you'll love these poker tips.
Poker tips with Jason.
Poker takes real courage to know when to quit. I'm out. Oh, but it's your turn to pay for the pizza. Send him out! The WSOP tournament is on, and you can enjoy the thrill on your phone.
Download the WSOP free-to-play app and get 1 million extra chips using this promo code WSOP1M.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself, or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please. Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/play and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/play.
Temps are heating up, and so are the ticket deals this summer with Vivid Seats. Whether it's scoring tickets for a night out at the ballpark or witnessing the rising stars of women's basketball, Vivid Seats has you covered. With a robust rewards program and wide selection of tickets, Vivid Seats makes it easy to score great deals on great seats with a 100% buyer guarantee, giving you the peace of mind for the ultimate fan experience. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats, the official ticketing partner of ESPN.
Summer sports are heating up, and you can elevate the game with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Baseball is in full swing, plus soccer, tennis, esports, and women's basketball. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 during a single game this summer by making a lineup in just 60 seconds. Download the Prize Picks app now and enter code OT for a first deposit match up to $100. Enter code OT on the Prize Picks app for a first match deposit up to $100.
This is Carlin versus Joe. Chris Carlin, Joe Fortenbaugh.
I was here in Vegas when the Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup last spring. They were at every possible club, every minute of every day and night for like 3 weeks straight. You saw that Stanley Cup everywhere, from the day clubs to the nightclubs. I've never seen anything like that.
Carlin versus Joe. Weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and on SiriusXM Channel 80.
.com/JOY.
Score the hottest deals during the hottest time of the year with great deals on great seats from Vivid Seats. Whether it's a night out at the ballpark or witnessing the rising stars of women's basketball, Vivid Seats has a great selection and great prices on all the games that matter to you. And with one of the best loyalty programs in the game, fans can earn rewards with every purchase. Vivid Seats Rewards is free to join, and when you buy 10 tickets, the 11th is free. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official ticketing partner of ESPN.
It's Greeny, ESPN Radio, ESPN app, Sirius XM, Channel 80. Gabe Neitzel hanging out with Hembo today here on Greeny, and Greeny presented by Progressive Insurance. We were just talking about Anthony Edwards, and Stephen Curry had this conversation about dynasties and how maybe the Warriors are this last great dynasty in the NBA, talking about the sustained length of success that they had. But clearly, a lot of people high on Anthony Edwards after what the Minnesota Timberwolves did this last NBA postseason. And he's one of the young, fun stars that are going to be on display in the Olympics at the end of the month. And here's what Anthony Edwards had to say about how he is fitting into what's a pretty veteran Team USA.
I'm still the number one option. Yeah. I mean, y'all might look at it differently. I don't look at it no differently. Yeah. I just go out there and be myself, shoot my shots, play defense, and, they got to fit in and play around me. That's how I feel.
So this team, Hembo, has guys like, Stephen Curry, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum just won a championship. Joel Embiid has an MVP. This is a stacked team. How do you feel about Anthony Edwards saying, yeah, I'm still the number one option on this team?
I feel like he's crazy. But it's a good crazy. It's the kind of crazy that we embrace as sports fans because it's the kind of confidence that very few actually have, and the kind of confidence that very few that actually have it are willing to say in front of a microphone. But that's Anthony Edwards. He's sort of unapologetically him. He's very genuine, and it's one of the things I like most about him. Obviously, the game is just breathtaking. He is as good an athlete, as much a specimen as there is in the NBA. I mean, his game is brilliant. He's going to play next year at 23 years old, is as good a two-way player as there basically is in the whole league. He's stunningly good. But it's the confidence, it's his genuineness, it's his willing to say those things and just be himself and say it and mean it that I just love so much. So I have truthfully no idea how his Team USA teammates will feel about it, but based on everything that I gather, he's the kind of player that you galvanize around, and I think the kind of player that even the veterans on that team are going to gravitate towards.
I mean, he's the future of USA basketball, without a doubt, right? I mean, again, those names that I just listed off, when the Olympics come around in LA in 4 years, I don't know how many of those guys are going to be playing. Like, I think it's safe to say LeBron, Steph, those guys, they're not going to be on the Olympic team 4 years from now. So I love the confidence. And we know in order to be one of the best, if not the best in your sport, you have to have a little bit of that crazy confidence, right? You have to have that belief in yourself that even if you say it out loud of, yeah, I'm on a team with the all-time leading scorer, the best shooter, of all time. Like, yeah, but I'm still the number one option. Obviously, guys. I mean, come on. I mean, but you need to have that confidence in order to be as good as he is. Now, is he going to have to tamp that down? Yeah, probably. He's probably going to have to tamp it down a little bit on this team, and that's always the difficult thing for USA basketball. When the first Dream Team put everything together, I mean, those were basically exhibition games. They were just steamrolling everybody, so you didn't have to worry about, how are we going to handle crunch time minutes, because that wasn't going to be a thing. The rest of the world's caught up. There are going to be some games where they have crunch time minutes, and maybe Anthony Edwards isn't even on the floor for some of them. I think that he's probably going to be, but there's just a different mentality you're going to have with these other 12 because you're not clearly the best player right now. And I think that's always been the difficulty for USA basketball in the Olympics of, okay, how do we take these 12 guys who are probably the best players on their team and get them to play different roles, which is why a guy like Drew Holiday is perfect for this team because you need guys like that of, okay, Drew's going to accept whatever role we give him, and that's why he's going to get minutes on this team.
Yeah, that's right. I'd ask you, in looking up and down this roster, who is going to be their leading scorer? I mean, historically, it's been Kevin Durant. When this constellation of stars has aggregated, it's been Kevin Durant who winds up doing that. Who's going to be the leading scorer on this team, all things being equal? Obviously, we don't know exactly how his calf injury is going to net out, but is it going to be KD? Is it going to be LeBron? Is it going to be Anthony Edwards? Is there someone I'm missing? Who do you think is going to lead Team USA in scoring this year?
I lean towards just, like you said, default KD. It's something about the international game. I don't know if it's the shorter three-point line or how, the rules are a little bit different once you get around the paint, so it's tougher to constantly attack and get to the rim. So KD's just jumper is is just pure, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just shoots over everybody. It's tougher to defend him in the international game. I just default to KD because of all those things that have led him to be the leading scorer for USA basketball previously. They exist. And it's part of the reason why Carmelo Anthony, by the way, is the all-time leading scorer in USA basketball history.
Yes, he was. I think Kevin Durant either supplanted him or will soon supplant him.
Yes.
But your point is a perfectly fair one. My favorite thing about Anthony Edwards, I think, might be his base, the fact that he never runs out of battery, the fact that his charge is always full. In his 4 NBA seasons, it's 72, 72, 79, and 79 regular season games. He was obviously a terror in the playoffs this year. He was Team USA's leading scorer in the FIBA championships last year. This is the kind of thing that we want. If we're going to put him as sort of the future face of USA basketball, as you just put it, and I agree with that. I love the fact that he's a go-getter from that standpoint, the way that Kobe was, the way that Michael was. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw him play 82 games one year. If we saw him play 100-some games, of course, if his team winds up making a deep run to the NBA Finals. And that's going to be on the list of options for this guy because that's kind of a rarity. Now, a lot of players now, and this isn't really an insult or a slight, it's just kind of reality. These players are so much more conscious of their body, conscious of their numbers, conscious of their per-game averages, that some things come secondary. Anthony Edwards, the sense I get, just loves playing basketball and is going to play it as much as possible. It's one of the things I love about Luka, is that he loves playing for his country. So we complain that he's out of shape, we complain that he runs out of gas, we complain about all sorts of stuff. But Luka Doncic plays basketball year-round. It's something that I like because my personal opinion on load management is that, by the way, playing more basketball helps you play more basketball. And the fact that this guy's always going to be in shape year-round is one of the things I like most about Anthony Edwards.
Are we still expecting Team USA to be super dominant, or is the world a little bit closer to what Team USA is?
That's a great question. So I looked at the odds this morning. The men's team is minus 400 to win the gold medal. The women's team, just for some context, is minus 1,400. So that team is a lot more dominant than the men's team is. The women are going to steamroll through the Olympics like they basically always do. I'm not so sure that the men's team is going to. I've been pretty critical of our amateur basketball process in this country in recent conversations when it comes to the college game, putting players into the pros. And I think we're getting worse at that, and the world is getting better. However you choose to slice it, though, like this roster is absolutely stacked. My best guess is that we'll play a few competitive games, but I'd be surprised, if not stunned, if Team USA wound up not winning the gold. That was an opinion that I used to feel a little bit differently about this, but now you have the best players by a lot. And so if Team USA is not going to win this thing, it would definitely be an upset.
The years where Team USA has not walked away with gold, a lot of times it's because not all of, majority of the top players are not playing, right?
Right.
And that's not the case this year. Like, this is the best of the best that you could ask for, and I don't know if that's LeBron and Steph and KD just realizing, hey, this is probably our last chance in 4 years. Who knows if we're on Team USA? Let's go out, let's get one more gold medal. But to your point, I mean, we were just talking about this around the NBA draft. Mm-hmm. Not that I expect France to go out there and dominate, because, again, just having the top 2 picks, it's going to take them a while to be that confident in the international game. But when you see number 1, number 2 pick both coming from France, clearly the rest of the world is catching up. Spain has always given Team USA some issues. So, yes, I'm expecting some close games. I'm still expecting a gold medal, though, from Team USA.
Me too. One question I had for you, just again, in looking up and down this roster, is who's going to become boys and who's going to wind up saying to themselves, I want to play with you. I want to play with you and decide to sort of put this thing together a little bit. The coaching staff is Eric Spoelstra. I mean, in addition to Steve Kerr, it's Eric Spoelstra, Ty Lue, and Mark Few, the Gonzaga head coach. But which of these guys might wind up being future teammates because this is happening right now? To me, that's a non-trivial part of who's on this team and how well this team plays. As I said before, the Heatles was sort of a construct that occurred in part because of their relationship playing in the international game. And while there are a lot of veterans on this team, you know that there's going to be some players on this team that move around over the course of their NBA career, and relationships that they build this summer and the way that these guys mesh on the court might wind up playing a big role in that. That to me is a fascinating subplot of this really, really talented Team USA group. but the fact that you might wind up getting future NBA teams or dynasties that could be sort of a tentacle of this is a really interesting subplot that I'm going to be paying attention to this summer.
Trying to figure out who's going to play together. So I think you could take LeBron off the list, just because I don't think he's playing much longer. He's not going. If he was going to go anywhere but Los Angeles, he would have done that this offseason.
I agree.
He would have moved on. Like again, the flirtation last year that Steph Curry and the Warriors had with him, he didn't bite. He's not going anywhere. I don't think we see that. So the pairing that I thought of first when you proposed this question, I wonder what Anthony Davis is going to do when LeBron retires.
I like where your head's at. I like where your head's at.
Is he going to look around and go, oh, this roster's still not very good. I need to figure something else out? And then you look at another guy who his name hasn't been brought up as much, but still this team has been trying to figure out and just so many different combinations of star players and trying to get back to something that they went to a couple of years ago and lost, and that's the Suns. I am saying Devin Booker and Anthony Davis team up at some point.
I like where your head's at. To me, you've identified the two most recruitable players on Team USA for obvious reason. Right now, the Suns are trying to microwave success. They're not going to have much of it, and their rebuild is inevitable, and obviously Devin Booker is going to net you the most assets in return. I think that's happening. It's just a matter of when. And then the Anthony Davis factor does loom large, too, because the Lakers' window is really, really getting tight. Really getting small.
Good for you for giving them a window.
And, well, this is ESPN. I have to be respectful of the Lakers. Don't be ridiculous.
He's talking about their first round window.
I'm talking about their window of not getting swept in the final.
Their play-in window.
In the play-in. So that's the state of the Lakers. The Suns and the Lakers are both teams clearly, if not, status quoing, potentially on the descent. Those are the two sort of recruitable players, and I think Anthony Edwards is at the epicenter of it. If Anthony Edwards winds up being the sort of alpha male on this team that we might expect, that would be the potential byproduct. Is you see Anthony Davis or Devin Booker or Anthony Edwards get themselves in a room someday, their agents, and say, let's put this thing together on our own. I mean, right now, Minnesota's not in a place where they can really add those kind of salaries, but they will be eventually, and if you have a player like that, dare I say, even in Minnesota, you have the opportunity to put together a really, really star-laden team because he's at the center of your universe.
One last quick one for you. Who's the best player on Team USA? So again, the roster, just to throw it out there to give you a little bit of time. So you have Steph, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, Drew Holiday, Tyrese Halliburton are the guards. LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Tatum are the forwards. And then Embiid, AD, and Bam Adebayo are the centers.
So the best player on Team USA at this juncture of their professional career is Joel Embiid, who the last time we saw him fully healthy was the MVP of the league, and before he got injured this year was averaging literally a point per minute. He's the best player when he's healthy, of course. Who knows how healthy he'll be here, and who knows how much he'll actually play. I agree with your assessment of Kevin Durant. In international competition, he's basically been a cheat code, and he's definitely the guy you'd say is taking the last shot. But if you were to ask me who should lead this team in usage, in touches, in that kind of stuff, in who's controlling the game, I don't think it's too soon to say the answer to that question is Anthony Edwards. Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. I don't think you're crazy in terms of him being this two-way player, in terms of somebody that they're leaning heavily on. And it's probably not true anymore, but just looking at this team and what LeBron has meant to the entire league, I still kind of just lean towards the default, like LeBron's the best player. LeBron's the guy who's going to get the most usage. I just lean towards LeBron. It's probably not the right answer, but I feel like he's going to be the one with the ball in his hands in a tight game. Maybe he's not taking the shot. Maybe he's kicking it out to Steph or KD, but I still feel at the end of the day that all these guys are going to go, we want the ball in Bron's hands. He's going to make the right decision.
Yeah, he should probably be the de facto point guard of this team and facilitate everything. I'll put it this way. I think Anthony Edwards will lead the team in minutes. He'll play the most because he'll want to play the most. You'll probably see a lot of the older guys stagger their minutes a bit more. That's what they've done historically. But they're also going to be in some competitive games. I don't think they'll lose, but it wouldn't stun me if they lost. And so you're going to have to see them play to win and not just put together a scrimmage, sort of rotation. They're not going to, I don't think they'll have the luxury of doing that once they sort of get out of pool play, but I could be mistaken. They might steamroll through everybody, but the international game isn't exactly how a lot of these guys play, and other countries have been gearing up for this Olympics and have some pretty loaded rosters. We didn't mention Canada. Canada's really, really good. They have the second best odds of winning this thing. If you were to ask me for basically any team aside from the United States who has a real shot at winning the gold medal, it just might be Team Canada.
Anthony Edwards has talent, and Robert Half knows talent. 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring today. Robert Half is here to help. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today. Time to dive into some sneaky Hembo trivia.
By total points, who is the Bulls' leading scorer since Michael Jordan's last season in Chicago? Since 1998, who has scored the most total points for the Bulls? That's your trivia question.
Oh boy, this list is going to be full of some outrageous names, I have a feeling. But we'll see what that answer is coming up next after Hembo has this word from Nitsa.
We all know about the speed of sound, but have you ever thought about the sounds of speeding? If you drive over the speed limit, there are lots of different sounds that you might hear. Drive too fast, and you could hear the sound of a vehicle crashing, the sound of ambulances and first responders desperately trying to free you from the wreckage. You could hear the beeps of a heart monitor. You could hear doctors and nurses in an emergency room as you're being treated for your injuries. You could hear the sound of worried family members in the hospital waiting room, hoping to hear that you're okay. You could even hear the sound of people crying at a funeral, because if you drive over the speed limit, whether by a lot or by a little, you can do damage that's beyond repair. You could seriously injure yourself, or worse, you could hurt or even kill someone else. When you speed, you put everyone on the road in danger. One way or another, speeding catches up with you. Paid for by Nitsa.
It's Wrangler season out there. Open roads, endless horizons. Shop Wrangler.com for new denim styles.
It's Serena Williams, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this year's ESPYs. But before the show starts, I hope you'll join ESPN radio stations for their annual ESPYs Day in support of the V Foundation's work to achieve victory over cancer. Tune in all day on July 11th on ESPN Radio and give to the V Foundation.
Texting enrolls you in recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text JUDGE to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text JUDGE to 321-321. That's JUDGE to 321-321.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself, or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by Nitsa.
Spin your passion into a business with Shopify and break sales records with the world's best converting checkout. Let's hear that one more time. The world's best converting checkout. Shopify's legendary checkout makes it easier for customers to shop on your website, across social media, and everywhere in between. Now that's music to your ears. Any way you spin it, you can be a smash hit with Shopify. Start your $1 a month trial today at shopify.com/records.
Is it just me? Or does it sound like the universe is sending a message?
I be rocking Tommy John.
Maybe it's time to really listen.
Tommy John.
To Tommy John.
Tommy John. Tommy John underwear has dozens of comfort innovations like outrageously soft, lightweight fabrics that can keep you 2 to 3 times cooler than regular cotton.
Tommy John. Tommy John.
With thousands of 5-star reviews and over 20 million pairs sold, people love Tommy John. One Tommy John fanatic raves, love the summer weight and breathable fabrics. Just the right support. And everything's backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. Shop Tommy John's huge 4th of July sale now for 30% off site-wide. Save 30% at TommyJohn.com/stream. TommyJohn.com/stream. See site for details.
It's poker season. The WSOP tournament is on, and you can enjoy the thrill on your phone.
Don't miss out on poker season. If you love poker, the WSOP free-to-play app is the place for you. Play Texas Hold'em, Omaha, 3-card poker, and many more exciting game modes and features. Compete in exciting tournaments, win rings and bracelets, and enjoy special bonuses for a limited time.
Download now and get the WSOP thrill in your hand.
Traveling with your furry friends can be rough. Just getting them to come along is difficult enough, so the last thing you want to worry about is finding a place to stay. But when you choose Baymont by Wyndham, your four-legged companions are invited because they know pets are family too. At Baymont by Wyndham, pets are not just welcome, they're VIPs. Baymont by Wyndham. Come on in. So glad you're here. Book now at wyndhamhotels.com/Baymont.
Temps are heating up, and so are the ticket deals this summer with Vivid Seats. Whether it's scoring tickets for a night out at the ballpark or witnessing the rising stars of women's basketball, Vivid Seats has you covered. With a robust rewards program and wide selection of tickets, Vivid Seats makes it easy to score great deals on great seats with a 100% buyer guarantee, giving you the peace of mind for the ultimate fan experience. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats, the official ticketing partner of ESPN.
Summer sports are heating up, and you can elevate the game with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Baseball is in full swing, plus soccer, tennis, esports, and women's basketball. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 during a single game this summer by making a lineup in just 60 seconds. Download the Prize Picks app now and enter code OT for a first deposit match up to $100. Enter code OT on the Prize Picks app for a first match deposit up to $100.
You feel that?
And you can't get enough.
That buzz? The undeniable electricity?
The energy, the atmosphere.
This place is going crazy. Baby, it's the talk of the town.
You gotta love it.
Grabbing headlines and turning heads.
Yay. I just can't get enough.
The best league in the world welcomes a once-in-a-lifetime draft class.
We plan on putting on a show.
The WNBA is back, and we can't get enough. The WNBA on ESPN and ABC, now playing. Presented by Google.
And you can't get enough.
Michael is up next in Alabama. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay.
Paul Feinbaum, weekdays at 3 Eastern on the ESPN app and the SEC Network.
Okay, and how are your trivia skills?
This is Sneaky Himbo Trivia.
Regular sneaky or extra sneaky?
I'm Sneaky Hembo. He's Gabe Neitzel, and this is Greeny on ESPN Radio. Your trivia question today is this. By total points, who is the Bulls' leading scorer since Michael Jordan's last season in Chicago?
This is such a hard question because it's figuring out who's been with the Bulls for an actual extended period of time, because the obvious answers of like the best players that they've had, Jimmy Butler wasn't there long enough, I don't think. Derrick Rose obviously had the injuries. DeMar DeRozan wasn't there long enough. So it's trying to figure out who was there for a decent amount of time. And I'm throwing my hands up and I'm going Zach LaVine. I'm saying Zach LaVine because I think he's been there the longest and has put together some decent seasons. What do you got, Cam?
I kind of like Zach LaVine. I didn't think of that one just because he's It feels like he's been traded from there like 3 times because they've tried to trade him from there like so many times.
He's actually untradeable.
Yeah, but they keep having to keep him. I'm actually going with Butler. He was there, I think, 5 or 6 years, put up good numbers. I don't know if that's going to be long enough.
But he was a draft pick. Like his first couple of years there, I don't think he did anything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a better one. I don't want to steal your Levine one, so I'm going with Butler.
What do you got, Liam?
To be honest, I didn't hear the question because I was concentrating so hard on playing the break.
Yeah, he's running a board over here.
I'm going to go Luke Longley.
Right.
First one that popped in my head. The last dance was on 2 last night, so I watched a little bit.
Love the fact that you're on the board and the fact that you chose Luke Longley. Guys, this was a cruel question because the correct answer is Luol Deng.
Are you serious?
Wow. By total points, Luol Deng is the Bulls' leading scorer since Michael Jordan.
Wow.
What a sentence that is.
What's the list?
The list is as follows. Luol Deng is first, Zach LaVine is second, followed by Kirk Heinrich, Derrick Rose, Ben Gordon, and the aforementioned Jimmy Butler is sixth.
Kirk Heinrich was second?
Kirk Heinrich was third.
That tells you a lot about the Bulls.
The state of the Bulls, the state of Chicago sports right now is at an all-time low. They are in the valley. They are in the valley of the shadow.
Let's go ahead and talk about that because I don't think things are getting better for the Bulls anytime soon. The Kings over the weekend picked up DeMar DeRozan, 3 years, $74 million, and a sign and trade with the Bulls.
Best Bull of the 21st century.
Yeah, I guess so.
After the Bulls earlier this offseason unloaded Alex Caruso, what is the state of Chicago sports right now? Because I keep seeing on social media about how terrible it is, and I guess even though I'm in Milwaukee, very close to Chicago, I did not realize just how bad things have gotten 90 minutes to myself.
By the way, we just spent a lot of time disparaging Luol Deng, who I just learned made $168 million in his NBA career, so I would like to borrow his agent, if at all possible. The Chicago sports scene is in rough shape. Not just right now, but it has been. The Bulls' last playoff series win was 2015. The White Sox last playoff series win was the 2005 World Series.
At least it was a World Series.
Say that again?
At least it was a World Series.
At least it was a World Series, but it was 19 years ago. The Cubs championship window closed a lot more quickly than we expected. 2017, the last time they won one. The Blackhawks' last playoff series win was a 2015 Cup final, and the Bears was in the 2010 season. So I think it's safe to say that it's really shaping up for two people in particular to make it better, and make it better fast. The first is obviously Connor Bedard, who had a 61-point season at the age of 18. He was the Rookie of the Year this year, and it's all there for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has a rare opportunity for all of Chicago to embrace him with open arms. He doesn't even have to really be great. He just has to be better than what they've had, which has been wretched quarterback play for approximately 1 century. So I think there is enormous pressure, but also opportunity on Caleb Williams to improve the state of Chicago sports.
But it's all still hopeful because the Bears, despite all the hope at the end of the season, they still finished 7-10 and they were last in their division last year. So now they have Caleb Williams as the number 1 pick because of a smart trade that they made the year before. And he is landing in a spot that is the best for a number 1 overall pick that I can think of in terms of the weapons that they have, the defense that they've assembled over there. That quarterback seems to be the one missing piece. And if he can be that, yes, hope can reign eternal in Chicago for the Bears. But it is bleak elsewhere. It is bleak. I don't think the White Sox are ever going to be good again. Like, they just seem that bad.
Feels
right now.
unlikely.
The Cubs, despite winning the offseason by getting the manager from the Milwaukee Brewers and Craig Counsell, sitting in last place in the NL Central, and things are so bad, one of their top relievers punched a wall and broke his hand.
Nice.
That's
nice.
Why is that a thing that only happens to baseball pitchers?
By the way, I sensed a bit of a rise, a little spike in your voice when you mentioned the Craig Counsell thing. You're a Milwaukee guy. Give our national audience just a taste of how satisfying it's been to watch the Cubs fall flat on their face.
Oh, it's been fantastic. It's just been so. I was at a Brewers game when they took on the Cubs the first time the Cubs were up here. My mom booed Craig Counsell. That's how much he's hated up here.
Tremendous.
Everybody, he is walking out on the floor. Because for the longest time, when he was the Brewers manager, he was, oh, hey, I'm one of you guys. I'm one of you guys. I grew up here. I know what it means. And then, again, from a professional standpoint, I understand pursuing better opportunities, higher money. Brewers were never going to give him the money that he got. But when you lean into being one of us, in air quotes, for so long, and then turn your back on us, yeah, no, you're going to get booed, man. And we are going to revel in the schadenfreude that is the Cubs being in last place.
Wow. That was what a beautiful diatribe you just went on. The Cubs,
and a schadenfreude.
Yeah, that was very, very well done. SAT words all over the place. The Cubs' lack of success this season has genuinely surprised me. That felt like a team that was on the ascent. And it's not obvious to me that they're going to actually have done anything with this sort of Jed Hoyer rebuild. I mean, when the team wins the championship in 2016 and they have so many young stars, the fact that none of them really panned out there and the fact that some of those guys have totally fallen off the face of the earth elsewhere is one of the strangest things. It's almost like that year, that 2016 championship, made them all made men, and that anything that ever happened in the future didn't really matter because that curse was so significant to those fans and to that city. It's almost like they're now paying for it. It's like they're paying a penance for having exercised the curse because the team is a shell of what it was then, and this new team that was supposed to be good isn't. It's a very bizarre state of affairs, and I think you might say that a lot is riding on the Bears this fall because that's the next thing people are going to soon be looking forward to unless the Cubs sort of get back into this thing. The scene in Chicago is bad right now, and I'm not so sure it's getting better because I'm kind of with you. My Bears skepticism is pretty high.
Yeah, because it comes down to trusting a head coach who hasn't shown that he has earned anybody's trust right now. He's certainly on the hot seat in Matt Eberflus in Chicago, so I think that's a big part of it. And even though the Blackhawks do have one of the most exciting young players in the NHL, it still feels like they're a ways away. We mentioned the Cubs, and everybody else just seems so far away. The Bulls are tearing it down. Like, the Bulls haven't even probably bottomed out yet.
So weird.
That's
what they're
not
doing
going to be
is so weird.
Yeah, they're just selling off every piece they can think of, and you know. But hey, they've got Josh Giddey, so they've got a 21-year-old.
They're the most directionless franchise in the NBA. They're not the worst franchise, but they're the most directionless franchise in the NBA, and that's all you want as a fan. You want to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. If you're a Bulls fan, you're just sort of wandering around the tunnel, and there's no light on either side.
Coming up next, one league has a prime opportunity in front of them. Will they find a way to mess it up? My bet is yes. That's next on Greeny, ESPN Radio, and the ESPN app.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can easily find coverage options that fit your budget. If only it was that easy to name your baby.
How about Jaden?
Nope.
Okay. Michael?
Went to middle school with a glue-eating Michael.
Sebastian?
Dated one in college.
How about Damien?
Vampire name.
All right. Greg?
Not feeling it.
Okay. No worries. No worries. Jeffrey?
Oh, love that one.
Wait, really?
No.
Find coverage options that fit your budget with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? You've got an oil change coming up. You can go farther and save on full synthetic with our oil change special. Right now, you can get 5 quarts of STP full synthetic oil with an STP extended life oil filter for just $29.99. Get the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
This is Freddie and Harry.
If Patrick Mahomes can win 3 in a row, if Patrick Mahomes gets this 4th Super Bowl, I've went in the past on First Take. I've been in the past on Get Up. And I said if he can get to 4, go ahead and open up that door. Bah. You better go ahead and goat him up.
Check out more from Freddie and Harry weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
I'm Clinton Yates, kiddos, host of the podcast ESPN Daily. Every weekday morning, I'll bring you the best sports story you'll hear all day. Today on ESPN Daily. It's been an eventful NBA offseason so far, with some major trades shaking up the future of the league. Tim Bontemps is live from the Team USA training camp in Vegas to talk about the most exciting free agents and predict what will go down on the international basketball stage this summer. That's ESPN Daily. Follow us and listen wherever you get good podcasts.
The Baseball Tonight Podcast.
Kansas City Royals, who have a great anchor in their rotation in Cole Reagans, they're really interesting to me.
The Baseball Tonight Podcast is on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Evan, Canty, and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
Kyle Shanahan. He is desert thirsty for a championship. This dude needs a title in the worst way. Kyle Shanahan, number one with a bullet. Right now, he's famous. If he has one more gaffe in the big game, he's going to be infamous. So Kyle Shanahan needs a title in the worst way more than anybody in all of professional sports.
Unsportsmanlike. Weekday morning starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio.